After almost 8 years, Nintendo's next big budget mega million dollar 3D platformer is finally here, and it's not at all what people expected. Everyone, and I mean everyone, thought they knew that when the Switch 2 came out, it would soon be followed by a big 3D Mario game to come out that same year. But instead we got a ginormous 3D Donkey Kong, a series that hasn't gotten a fully original game in over 10 years, and no 3D games in over 25. To say that this game is a huge deal is frankly underselling it. This is a game that doesn't feature Mario with a Mario budget, and I couldn't be happier about it. The one thing that has been disappointing to me about all of this though, is that I just see so many people still so concerned about where the next 3D Mario is, even though this is the new 3D Mario. It's pretty much the same team that worked on Odyssey, and it's been in development for ages. This thing was originally going to be a Switch 1 game. I'm glad it was not a Switch 1 game. This had all of the love and care that would be put into a new Mario, so why does it matter that it's a monkey instead of an Italian? But if I'm going to sit here and tell you that this game is pretty much the new 3D Mario, then I should probably check and see if Nintendo put their money where my mouth is. And look, I'm not saying this lightly either. Mario Odyssey is my favorite 3D platformer, and it's going to take a lot for me to say that this game is as good or better. And I guess there is the possibility that this game will disappoint me and not be as good as I thought it was going to be. I hope that doesn't happen. That was a fun intro, wasn't it? I wrote that before the game came out, and I didn't yet know that this game was going to be one of the greatest games I've ever had the pleasure of playing. I'm going to keep this review very spoiler-free because there are so many things in this game that I don't want to spoil, and I also only recorded some of the earlier points in the game, so I don't even have any footage to spoil you with. Just trust me though, if you're planning on playing this game and you're able to avoid spoilers, do it. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know where to start with this. There's just so much to talk about. I guess a good place to start would be with the main selling point of the game, the fact that almost all of the terrain in this game can be destroyed. Obviously, there is tons of stuff that can't be since the game needs to function as a game, but even then, this game shocked me with how much you really can just pulverize. I'm just waiting for videos to pop up online of people just leveling entire areas of the game because you can. It would be a lot of work, but you really can. And it seems like such a do it for a while and the novelty wears off type of thing. And while yes, that is technically true, I mean it took me like 20 hours to beat the game, I wasn't just gawking at this one mechanic the entire time, but it's so well integrated into the game's level design and mechanics that even when that initial amazement wears off, it's still just fun. What I really liked though, is that the destruction mechanic is sort of just baked into the combat of the game as well. Pretty much all enemies have a layer of some sort of material wrapped around them that you have to break through before you can actually defeat them. That carries over into the bosses as well, which while not extremely hard or anything, they are super fun and satisfying to fight. Having to rip off or destroy chunks of enemies before landing that final blow is just such a cool way to integrate the destruction mechanic into the combat. There's this one move you can do where you roll into a punch, and that's like my favorite thing to do in the whole game. Speaking of punching, that is mostly what Donkey Kong's moveset is composed of. 3 of the 4 face buttons are used for punching in different directions. Because of that, your movement options outside of punching are fairly limited, especially compared to all the crap you can do in Odyssey. Triple jumps, long jumps, and all the crap you could do with Cappy is gone, but that doesn't mean I think the moveset is worse. The roll you can do in Odyssey returns, except you can pretty much do it whenever you want, even in midair, making it incredibly useful for platforming. You can also just climb on practically everything, making traversal around the world a breeze. Then you can tear off a piece of the ground, allowing you to do stuff like turf surfing and a double jump, making DK's moveset even more fun to play with. But I think what makes me the most happy about this game is that the level design is not compromised just so you can punch a hole in the wall. Instead, they took the time to make sure to design the levels around the fact that you can punch a hole in the wall. Much like Mario Odyssey, this game is a collectathon with a lot of collectibles, and since the player has the ability to level entire towns, I think me and many other people's worry for this game is that because of that, it would be way too easy to find collectibles, or they would overcompensate so much that it would be way too hard. A big criticism of Mario Odyssey was just how some of the moons in that game were either do an entire platforming challenge, or just ground pound once. I didn't really mind this since I just found wandering around and collecting things in that game to be so fun, but I definitely do agree that a lot of those moons did sort of just feel like filler content, and while maybe my perspective might change after a while, right now I feel like this game just strikes the perfect balance. Yes, there are still a ton of collectibles with the hundreds of Banandium gems and different types of fossils found in each layer, but at the same time, none of them are just stand there and get one. You have to work for this stuff, whether it's doing a special challenge or having to search through the ground. This is also where your hand slap / radar move comes in super handy, as you can use it to see where collectibles are that might have been a little too hard to find otherwise. And unlike every 3D Mario game, these collectibles aren't just tied to getting enough to go to the next area. Instead, these are used to upgrade the Great Ape himself. The Banandium gems give you skill points to upgrade stats and unlock new abilities, while the fossils allow you to buy new clothes that can also give you stat increases and other bonuses. In all reality, this is really the only use of the collectibles, so you can sort of just skip past most of them if you just want to rush the story, which I wouldn't really recommend unless you're speedrunning it or something. That did just make me think though, speedruns of this game are probably going to be pretty cool. One thing I've sort of forgotten to mention so far that ties back into all that banana collecting is the ruin challenges. These are somewhat similar to the little platforming areas you could find in Mario Odyssey, except here I feel like they are much more common and varied. Some are just mini combat challenges, while others are just full-on levels, some even harkening back to older Donkey Kong games. I found these to be pretty enjoyable, with my favorites definitely being the side-scrolling levels that were meant to resemble past games. I do kind of wish more of these levels were like that, since most of these just sort of have that Breath of the Wild shrine aesthetic, which works fine, but I think the nostalgic levels just feel a lot more like Donkey Kong than Gray Walls. That's ultimately a pretty small complaint though, since for the most part I like having these more linear challenges thrown in to change things up every once in a while. Another big feature of the game are DK's new Bananza forms, which are just as awesome as they are slightly off-putting. The one that turns Donkey Kong from a gorilla into a gorilla obviously doesn't look that weird, but then you get the zebra and especially the ostrich, and they just look so charmingly disgusting. They also do a fairly good job of switching up how Donkey Kong plays, with each form giving him pretty distinct abilities, and that's not even mentioning the ones I'm purposefully not telling you about. For most of the game, I was a little disappointed that it felt like these were just sort of optional little power-ups that didn't have a ton of challenges really designed around them, but as the game progressed, I think they started doing a much better job of incorporating these forms into the level design. One huge difference I feel this game has over your typical Nintendo platformer is it does feel like a lot more emphasis is placed on the story of the game. Obviously, it's still a Nintendo game and we don't have some award-winning story here, but it just felt like a lot more than we usually get. We have a younger version of Pauline here who is definitely the main focus, and they try to use this game as a sort of origin story for her. She's the only character who is fully voice acted and speaks actual English, while everyone else just sort of talks in gibberish. Donkey Kong doesn't do either of those things though, he's just having a good time. A character that really stood out to me was definitely Void Kong. I think he was just a fun villain, and the voice actor was able to put a whole lot of character into the random gibberish lines they were given. In all of the marketing for this game, it definitely seemed as if this was sort of a new, fresh start for Donkey Kong. You know, we have new villains, a completely new setting with the whole underground world, and to top all of that off, the game features a new Donkey Kong design. It sort of made sense to a lot of people that this would be the case, as for a while now, Nintendo has just seemed really hesitant to incorporate too much from the rare Donkey Kong games. This is especially apparent in Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze, because as amazing as those games are, they definitely have their own look and feel compared to those older games. And this game also has a very unique and new feel to it, but you can also tell that the devs of this game absolutely adore the rare era of Donkey Kong games. If anything, it's the two newer Donkey Kong Country games that kind of feel left out here, aside from a reference to that pig. But just from those DKC-inspired levels, the rock people that look like they're ripped straight from Banjo-Kazooie, and a ton of other stuff I won't get into because of spoilers, this is a game that is just as in love with DK's past as it is dedicated to building his new future, and I genuinely can't think of a better way to do a big series revival like this. So back to the question I posed at the beginning of the video of whether or not this game lives up to the monumental status of being as good as a new 3D Mario game. Yeah, Yeah, it does. It reached the bar and then kept going until it was punching the moon. I genuinely feel spoiled with how good this game was, especially after we just got Astrobot less than a year ago, which was another incredible 3D platformer. Mario Odyssey is still going to hold a very special place in my memory since it was just the right game at just the right time, but after this game, I don't know if I can still justify saying it's my favorite 3D platformer anymore. This game has the exact same, if not more, budget and care given to a new big Mario game, except it's still very much a Donkey Kong game, which allows it to be something different. And while I may now vastly prefer this game over Odyssey, I still don't think it necessarily replaces it, since there are still so many differences that I think make both of these games stand out on their own merits. I feel a little awkward shoving this in here, but shilling for likes and subscribers in the last video actually kind of made a difference, so I'm doing that again here. You've watched YouTube before, you know the drill. I kind of said it as a joke last time, but fine, I'll work on the King of Swing video. One more final thought before we close, though. I could handle Mario Odyssey not getting any major DLC, but I don't know if I'm going to make it if Bananza doesn't get any.